Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach.
So, today, Lauren and I wanted to talk about the infamous how do you actually become a world champion? So, we've had many guests on in the past couple months that have either won a world champion or been really close and that sort of stuff. And Lauren and I thought it would be a good time to break down the steps that Lauren took to win her world title in the level 3 horsemanship. So, Lauren, how long did it take you to decide that you wanted to pursue that goal? And how long did it take you to actually achieve that goal?
Yeah, so it's interesting that we're recording this podcast on this day because exactly 4 years ago is when I achieved that goal. And so that was in 2020. But
Oh, it's
that,
so crazy.
I know, right? Isn't it nuts? Just time flies. And it took a long time to achieve it.
Yeah, what a coincidence.
Absolutely. And if we think back to when I first realized that becoming a world champion was something I wanted to do, I think I was about 13 years old. I had a sorrel horse that I showed. I was still a walk trotter, even though I was 13, but I loved showmanship and I would compete in the youth all ages showmanship because back then we didn't have 13 and under. And I remember being 13 years old and competing against some of the top people in the nation. And for some reason, little old me really thought at 13, being a walk trotter, I was going to win the world that year in the showmanship. And so that's kind of where the seed got planted. And I'm really thankful for all the years where I didn't win. I didn't even make the finals for a lot of years, to be honest. And I think that that really solidified that goal and dream inside my heart and really lit a fire in me to make me want to figure out what I was doing wrong and how to be better and really go after it to finally achieve it. What, 15 years later?
I love that it took you that long because I think people could look at you and say, "Oh my gosh, well, Lauren won this title. It must have been easy for her. It must not have taken her that long." But well, you've been showing your whole life and you've had that goal for a very long time. And I think that that's good to show other people because I think that people think that it's something that can just happen,
Yeah.
but it didn't just happen. You had to work really hard for it.
Absolutely. And then even if we dial it down even a little bit further as to when I first got Rooster, I bought him at the end of 2016. So we had 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. So that's 5 years of a partnership with a horse with the goal of winning a world championship before it even actually happened. And there were a lot of ups and downs in that process. I remember the very first time I showed him in a horsemanship class, we could barely stand at a start cone because he was nervous, I was nervous, and so there was just a lot of, like, patience and failure and working through it, and again, I go back to when I was 13 years old, and every time I lost, I thought, "Okay, what do I need to do to get better?" And that's how I felt with Rooster when I was going on that journey of trying to win the world championship, of taking each loss as, okay, what can I do to be a better horseman in order to get closer to that goal? Because I would look around and the people who were I looked up to and who were winning, they had so many years of experience and just hours in the saddle, and they were talented riders and not only talented showmen, but like true horsemen. And so that was my ultimate goal, is to figure that out. And if I could get anywhere close, then I might have a shot.
Did you ever think about giving up during that whole process?
Absolutely. It's one of those things where you're like, "Man, is this the right horse? Am I the right rider?" Even though I knew he was so talented, there was a time at the beginning where he was at a trainer's and I couldn't get out there because I was, committed to my job and I couldn't travel as much and everything. And so I had to only show up at the shows, and I thought, "This is not fair to this horse to be able to achieve the goals that I have for him, because how can we achieve these goals when I am not putting in the time on him. I was riding at home, I had horses that I would ride, but it's not the same as building that partnership with your horse, and I knew he was incredibly talented, and I remember Bruce showing him to a world championship in the junior trail, and then the next year, I finally started showing him the trail, and I split every single lap over that I went over and trotted, and on the very first class, I showed it, and I thought, "Wow, what a disservice you are being to this horse." And it was hard, but ultimately, when I was able to bring him home and put the time in every single day and get video lessons and get help from the trainers at the shows, that really, I think, is what helped to turn the corner because with a horse like him, I just needed to build a bond and put the time and the reps in, and there was no way I could do that being 1,000 miles away.
Yeah, I would imagine that that would be really, really hard because you probably had the right amount of talent and he had the right amount of talent, but together you had to build that bond. And if you're only riding at horse shows, one, horse shows are a pretty stressful environment, right? Like there's a lot going on. Your horse is stressed, your trainer is probably a little bit more stressed. You spent a lot of money to get there, so there's that stress as well. You're not working, so a lot of there's horse shows are just a really stressful environment, so if that's the only time that you're riding your horse, that's probably not setting you up for success.
Absolutely, and, like, you bring up a really good point of having to go to these long horse shows where they cost a lot of money, and they take a lot of time away from work, which is making you the money, so then theoretically, it's a double cost, right? And that got in my head probably more than anything of feeling of financial stress and kind of burden on myself and being like, "Okay, is this worth it? Is this smart? Am I doing the adult thing by pursuing this crazy thing that I can't stop thinking about?" I remember I listened to Cody Johnson's song Dear Rodeo so many times and I thought, "Okay, is this it? Is this Dear Rodeo? Is it time to go?" Right? But yeah, there's just a lot on it, but there's definitely ways to make it work for you and have it not be quite so stressful. It's just sometimes maybe doing things a little unorthodox, like getting video lessons, or I signed up for Amelia Newcomb's dressage class, right? I signed up for Clint Anderson's Down Under video series, just kind of looking for as many different ways to be able to learn without having to go down the traditional route that was maybe a little bit more expensive. But that expense deal, that was the most stressful. It still is the most stressful part of showing for me.
Did you face any challenges bringing Rooster home? Like, was it hard for you to have the confidence to bring home this really nice horse? And did you have to worry about, oh, but what if I do something wrong? And what if I get myself into a hole and there's not a trainer here to help me out? Like, did you struggle with that at all?
Oh, absolutely. There was a lot of nerves and stress associated with that because I was really happy with where he was. I just knew that for myself in the situation I was in, I needed him to be closer. And so it didn't have anything to do with me being dissatisfied with the training that he was getting, which I think made it almost a little more difficult because I was happy where I was, but I just knew I needed to do something else in order to keep my home life happy and everything, right? And so I think that bringing him home was stressful on that account because I really wanted to make the people proud who had put so much effort into building him and making him a nice horse and kind of try to continue that on. So it helped because they were very supportive and understanding of where I was at and wanted to see me succeed. And so a lot of trainers were very helpful when it came to video lessons and being able to work with my requirements and my parameters and everything. And then my mom really stepped up a lot, which was great because it ended up being one of the best things for her and my relationship because when I brought him home, she was my eyes, she was my coach at home, she was my therapist at home when things didn't go quite right, and I thought, "Oh, I'm not cut out for this, I'm ruining this really nice horse," and she would always tell me, "You can do this, we can figure this out. There is a way, you are smart, and we have the internet, and we've got a phone, and we can figure out what we need to do." But it was very stressful, and one of the things that really stressed me out too was he went from being in a show barn environment to, living on a feedlot with a lot of cows and farm equipment and pastures and everything, which I think was really good for him. But Whew, it was stressful introducing a show horse to cattle for the first time, let me tell you that.
Yeah, I bet. I like how you and your mom just figured it out. Like, it would have been the easy thing to do would have just been to probably send him to a trainer that was closer to home to just help you with those nerves and that fear of failure. Because it sounds like to me like you had a lot of fear about, well, what if I can't do it? And what if I'm not setting the horse up for success? This horse has been proven to be really successful. So that puts a lot of pressure on you. And so the fact that you didn't give up probably attributes a lot to you ending up winning that world title. So let's get into the nitty-gritty of it a little bit. So when you were 13 and you kind of set out that goal, there was a light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm sure that light was so far away that at times that it was hard to see. At what point did it kind of change and that goal started to become more within reach, more of a reality? Like when could you actually start to see it? And how did that change your training or your mindset at all?
It probably started to change in 2010. I was 4th at the Youth World in showmanship. And that, I think, really was enough of a success for basically to fuel my fire for the rest of my life. To really be like, "Okay, you're close. You just gotta keep after it," right? And as you were saying that question, I really was thinking to myself, is this like blind optimism or ignorance is bliss? But really, every year, I've kind of always thought, you know what? I got a chance. Got a chance. And I think that that's what kind of allows you to push through. And I always made a point, and I'm very blessed for my parents when they were buying the horses, and then blessed for myself when I started buying my own young horses. Like, I really prioritized getting talented and willing partners. And when you have a talented and willing partner to go to a horse show with, you do feel so much more confident and feel like you can go for something, even though in the adult life, once I had my own horses, they were really green, but I felt like they could be competitive on a green level. And then when I had my horses when I was younger that were maybe a little bit more finished, like I knew that I probably never until except for Rooster had the quote unquote nicest horse at a horse show, but I knew that they were nice enough and our bond was strong enough that if we could put it all together at the right time, like we did have a chance. And I think that was always kind of a saving grace for when things didn't go well is because I could always pinpoint exactly why they didn't go well and then kind of reframe and reset and then tackle it again for the next round at a class for the split combined or for the next horse show if it was at the end of the horse show. But it just really was helpful to show up with it at a show and know that you've put the time in and that the time will pay off eventually. It might not be today and it might not be tomorrow. You can't control what somebody else comes to the show with, whether they have put in more time than you or whether they have a nicer horse than you or if they just happen to get lucky one day, right? That's what's so hard is there's 2 minutes that are just up to chance and we try our hardest to do our best and then the rest kind of falls where they may, but it makes a big difference to show up with something that you can feel confident with.
Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in to Elevate Your Ride. We're so excited to continue helping you elevate your performance in the saddle. To keep bringing you quality content and information, we're asking you to help us. Tell your friends about us on our podcast, like and share a meaningful quote you saw on our social media, write us a review on Spotify or Facebook. You can also join our Facebook group and ask all your health and fitness questions, or maybe post a success story to motivate another amateur. Your engagement really helps us support and encourage the equestrian community. We're also inviting sponsors and supporters to help us build our show. As a sponsor, starting at just $150, you'll receive marketing on our podcast, website, and growing social media platforms for your business. It's the perfect way to connect with the equestrian community and showcase your brand to our dedicated listeners. And for our supporters, your $50 contribution gets you a shout out on our social media and website. Every bit of support really helps fuel the show and helps us inspire and motivate equestrians. So, if you're interested in learning more about that, you can scroll down to the show notes of this episode and look for the become a supporter or become a sponsor links and click on those to get some more information. Thank you for listening. We can't wait to continue expanding our platform and helping you elevate your ride. So, did you start changing like your training process or start working on your mindset or your fitness or anything like that after you won the showmanship? Like, what I know that you said that that kind
Well,
of
I didn't
fueled,
music.
kind of your fire forever, but what does that mean? Like what did you change after that?
So back then, I didn't change probably a whole lot. I'd say the change more so came, and maybe because I didn't change a whole lot is why I never actually got to the world championship any sooner. I mean, I still kept going out there. I still kept putting in the reps. I still kept working hard, showing, learning, but I kind of only learned from whatever trainer I was with at the time. And then I'd say what really kind of changed a lot of my focus was once I brought Rooster home, then I reached out to a multitude of different trainers, and that was actually, incredible. It's amazing how well people work together, and just by hearing things a different way, it can change the way that you ride something because one version is gonna resonate with you maybe a little bit stronger, and each person picks out something different, and so by getting a multitude of opinions I was really able, I felt, to kinda curate my style and my ride to really fit what would make Rooster be the best horse that he could. I felt like I finally started developing into a horseman then, was by asking for different help. I went to reiners, I went to cutters, I even did jumping lessons, and I think just being a more well-rounded equestrian was a big, big game changer in the saddle, and then I also started listening to a lot of podcasts, which then inspired us to start this podcast and then also to become a mindset coach, but the podcast that I listened to really talked about the competitive mindset and what high-end athletes, either in the basketball world or the baseball world or the football world, what they were thinking about and how they handled adversity, and that was really, really helpful to me. And then another thing I did was add in weight training, which is where you came into play, and that made a big difference because I had been doing weight training, but I had been doing, uh, almost almost like I'm not sure what you would exactly call it because it's not necessarily competitive lifting because I never competed, but I was
You
trying.
were doing traditional strength training where you were focused more on how much weight you could lift more than anything else.
Yeah, like every 4 months, it'd be like, "Okay, time to max," and I was getting hurt all the time, and I didn't feel like it helped me in the saddle, and I was like, "Well, I'm working out, so what more do you want?" 'Cause you go to the doctor and they say, "You need to exercise." "Okay, well, I'm exercising, but it's not working." But so it was really helpful when you came into play and we started working on balance, stability, functional strength training, that type of thing. It really helped me in the saddle. And then the jumping, I think, helped my strength a lot too. But it's kind of so I guess a lot of things shifted, and looking back, it makes sense that I would have reached my goals once I shifted all of those things because that's a lot of change and a lot of kind of I was all in on every pursuit, and I think that that's the biggest thing. It definitely drained my social battery, I'm not gonna lie, like, for me being a quote unquote normal person in the real world outside of the horse world, it was tough, right? Because you just don't have a lot of time for everything else. All I wanted to do was be learning. All I wanted to do was be watching horse videos. All I wanted to do was be having lessons with you on strength training, right? I wanted to call this trainer and see, what do you think about this? Call that trainer. What do you think about that? Right. And it was a very all consuming thing, and I'm so thankful for it, and I'm also thankful that it kinda paid off too, right?
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pen anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and I'm here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
Yeah, for sure. So, was it worth it in the end, all the sacrifices?
That's a very good question. I feel like my immediate answer should be, "Yes, it 1000% was." But I'm not really sure that winning necessarily was what made it worth it. Because, yeah, winning did make it worth it, but after winning and then going on with life, I realized that winning isn't really the end goal. The end goal is like when I was talking to you or answering your question a few minutes ago and saying of becoming a horseman, like, that makes it worth it. The relationships that I've built with these trainers and my friends who show that I've leaned on a lot and, like, our friendship that we've built and now business partnership, like, all of that's made it worth it. Like, yeah, I 1000% would not trade anything for that gold trophy that I have sitting on my mantle, right? Like, that was really incredible, but I'd be lying if I said it was that trophy that made it feel like it was worth it. I think that all the lessons learned along the way are what made it worth it, because I remember, when we won and then we were so excited and it was probably 10 minutes of that and then, my trainer who was helping me at the world show came up to me and said, "Okay, do you wanna start practicing for equitation now?" And it's like, "Oh, we just gotta keep living and keep riding still. Yeah, that was great, but now we're on to the next." And so you have to find things like, yeah, obviously the win was worth it, but you have to find other things that make it feel worth it too.
For sure. What were all the steps that you took and what was the journey like the year leading up to the world show? So starting from like October 2019 to October 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot that happened during that time. And so it's a great one to like dissect because I feel like a lot of people can maybe learn from it and see the ups and downs of it. And it wasn't all just straight up. There was definitely a lot of things I felt like that were going against us that I then was able to turn around and use it as kind of forward momentum to help propel us to the win. So, October 2019, I'd actually just written a children's book about Rooster, and, that was a super fun thing because then I felt like people started seeing Rooster as a kind of character and, like, seeing his value as more than just a show horse, and I started taking him to pony clubs and stuff, and reading the book to the little kids, and I think that when I was able to do that and make having a horse fun again, that helped kind of free up a lot of mental space for me. I know that that sounds funny when you're asking me what did it take to be a world champion, but being able to take some of the seriousness out of it, because I'm a very serious person, it helped a lot because then when I would go to horse shows, there'd be little girls that would come up and they would just wanna meet Rooster. And it really reignited my love and passion and reminded me that, hey, there's little kids out here that just love horses and they just want to be around a horse and see a horse and pet a horse. And that horse that they want to be around is Rooster, and how special it is that you get to ride this horse every single day. So you better like enjoy it. So then we went to the World Show in 2019 and I made my first level 3 finals with him. It was in the amateur equitation. And so I thought, "Ugh, finally we broke through. Like we do deserve to be here." That's one thing that I think by making the finals is it made me feel like you deserve to be here, which I know I now preach on that we don't need to have success to feel that, but man, it sure does help, right? To have some external validation saying, "Yeah, you can compete. It's okay. Come on." And so that really helped. So then after that happened, I thought, "Okay, we can do this," because I had Rooster at home at that point too, and I thought, "Okay, we're good enough to make the finals. So, you know what? Maybe my goal is just to be a finals girl. I may just make the finals every time and everything's going to be great." Well, that doesn't really match up with my personality, so that didn't last very long, but it kind of helped to soothe it a little bit. So then 2020 comes around and I'm thinking, "All right, I've got a great horse. I've got a great game plan. I know what we're going to do. We're going to go to Sun Circuit. I've got big goals." I was still level 2 in a lot of classes, and so I thought, "Okay, we're gonna try to stepping stone our way up to be competitive and win the level 3 by winning all the level 2 stuff. I think we're good enough for that. But then so Sun Circuit was about to come, and I was working with one of my parents' young horses, and he was kind of a little bit of a funny attituded fellow, and I was doing showmanship, and he pawed me in the ankle, and I it probably was broken. I didn't go to the doctor. I should have, but I couldn't walk. I even had a triathlon that I was training for at the time, and I had to cancel it because I couldn't even ride a bike. I couldn't even just do that portion of it. But my foot was smashed. I couldn't get it in a boot. I couldn't ride, so I didn't get to go to Sun Circuit. That was devastating because I was like, "Oh, this was going to be my introduction into, kicking butt, taking names, doing all the things, and I don't get to go to this horse show. How sad." However, I was like, "I'll just go to the next show. It's gonna be great." Well, shortly after that, COVID hit. So then being in California at that time, everything was shut down. And when everything got shut down, I'm not gonna lie, I went to a very dark place. It felt like my whole world just ended. And I felt very, very alone because I had friends who were getting to go to horse shows. And at that point, most of my friends were just from the horse shows. I didn't have a very strong community where I was living. And so to be cut off from that and be cut off from showing and be cut off from going to trainers and feel like, okay, I have this really expensive horse that is sitting in my pasture doing nothing, like that financial guilt kind of on top of me. I really, really, really struggled. And then thankfully, the horse show community stepped up and started the online Charlie Cole's online horse show or virtual horse show. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Yeah, I do.
Yeah, it was really cool. So we started that and I started entering everything that I could because what was awesome about that was they would give you the scorecards from the judges that were great judges who would be normal judges at a world show, and the patterns were always extremely difficult, and I was able to basically show my horse from home, and a whole new world opened up for me with that because then I started having a purpose again. I had a reason to go out and practice. I would just be waiting every week for them to release a new class and a new pattern. And my mom and I, we would dissect it and figure out what we were going to do. We would practice it. We would film it. I was able to get the scorecards back and say, okay, this needs to be improved. And what was great too was you had all the videos of everybody else. So when Jonna beat me, I could look and see, okay, Jonna got plus on this, this, and this. I did not. What can I do to get better? And I could re-watch her runs. Or when Carrie beat me or everyone else, all the great names that come up of the people who were strong and riding these phenomenal horses. It was an incredible way to compare myself and improve. And I want to make it clear that I didn't compare them in like an envious or jealous way. It was in a way that was constructive of, okay, this is my standard. They are my standard. So what do I need to do to get better there? And I think that that helped elevate me more than anything was because a lot of times you go to a horse show and you get 2nd place or 3rd place or 10th place or you win, but you don't get to see any of your competitors. So you have a really hard time understanding, well, why did they beat me? But when you can watch those runs side by side, you're like, "Oh, I get it. I see it. There is no politics in this." As much as, that word gets thrown around, I really truly don't think that there is, at least not to a significant enough level, especially at the high end classes where you have 5 different judges. I really think that if you could compare runs side by side, there's hardly any politics because then you can be like, "Oh, I see it. I get it. It makes sense." So that kind of all built up. I really dug deep into training with you. I remember I was crazy and it was a really hot summer. It'd be like 105 degrees outside and we'd be working out in the garage and I'd be wearing long sleeves and long pants and you're like, "Aren't you dying?" I was like, "Girl, these horse shows, they're hot and they're long. I need to be ready." So I was like definitely conditioning myself that way as well. And then I would go for runs when it was hot like that, just to really know that no matter what the conditions were, I was going to be able to face them and not let it wear me out mentally. And then we finally got to the world show and I was in a very free space mentally of feeling like, okay, we've put in all the work, we have all the right training, and whatever happens, happens. And I was just really, really thankful to be there. And I think that helped a lot of just being just grateful to have made the finals too, because I made the finals in the very first class that I showed in. And I was like, it's worth it. This is worth it. That's when I really truly felt a sense of this is worth it. And then each class kind of rolled after one after another. And I definitely made sure that I gave myself enough time for sleep too, because sleep is a really big thing for me. So I took a lot of naps during that week, but it was really cool.
Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, and my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopindowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride. What was the hardest part physically training for that world show?
The hardest part physically for me is probably like I said with the sleep. So when you get to these major shows, there's a lot of long hours, and for me, I'm not a person that does well without sleep, and when that happens, I start making poor decisions, like, I'll just get upset, right? I'll be sad, I'll be negative, I'll be down, and so as time has gone on, I've definitely learned to prioritize that, so if I started feeling tired, I always made sure that I was able to go back and take a nap, and, like, I made sure that everybody around me who knew me well enough and I trusted, if they could feel like I needed a nap, go take a nap. I do have Hashimoto's like, a low thyroid, and so I think that plays a big role in, like, just kind of my fatigue, and so balancing that at a long horse show, that can be a struggle. Like at that show, I ended up actually scratching one of my showmanship classes because it was running really late. I remember the days were so long at that horse show. And so I scratched it because the next day was the horsemanship finals and I was just exhausted. And I knew that if I stayed up for that class, I would not show at my best ability the next day. And obviously, it was a worthwhile sacrifice, but you never know sometimes when you make those choices, but I knew at that point my sleep was my priority.
What was the hardest part mentally?
The hardest part mentally was that you've put in all this effort to try to get to that level, and you don't know if it's gonna be worth it. Like, that's the really big question is it worth it, and what's your definition of it being worth it, right? If your definition of it being worth it is just that gold trophy, like, I'm sorry, it took 15 years for me to do that, so that would mean for 15 years, I wasn't worth it, and the things I was putting my time into weren't worth it. So, you better make sure that you have a good grasp on what it is to you that makes it worth it because you can't rely on somebody else's opinion to tell you if it was worth it or not. And it took a long time to kind of get to that point of realizing and accepting that it doesn't matter if I come home with that gold trophy for me to be able to say, okay, this was worth it or not. And that I think has been the biggest growth and obstacle for me. And I think that that year, even before I was able to get that trophy, I think I knew that being able to be there and the sacrifices that I had made and the choices that I had made it all worth it just to be able to walk in that arena with that horse.
How did you manage the world show itself?
Oh, my mom, I had a trainer that I was getting help from there and stalled with. I definitely leaned on them because the management of the schedule and the sleep was, like, really, really hard. It was such a long day. I remember we showed in the equitation finals, like, 2 o'clock in the morning. It was terrible. Honestly, that should not have happened because you cannot expect a person or their horse to have shown all day long and been at the horse show to compete at the highest level and do that. So that was probably the most difficult class that I showed in. But in regards to managing the entire show, I definitely made sure I took each class as it came and was just thankful every time I made a finals, and I was really, really blessed that year. I made the finals in every single class I showed in, and we ended up having a record show, and I was very blessed to have been able to have it all come together in literally every single class, and it was really, really cool, but I had to the only way that that was possible was by me taking one class at a time, one prelims at a time, one finals at a time, and not letting the fear of feeling like, "Oh, man, I've won something now, the next class has to be better or the same," or feel like that added pressure. In a way, doing well took pressure off of me, but there's still I think that was kind of the biggest thing too, was my goal was to make the finals. I made the first finals, boom, pressure's off, right? Like, I was super excited. And then the very first class that I showed in a finals in, we were reserve world champions in the showmanship. And so, boom, my lifelong dream of even just getting a trophy, let alone being a world champion, that was realized. So, boom, way less pressure. And so then after that, everything was just gravy. And I think that that mental freeness of being able just to go out there, have fun, show what my horse and I can do, and not over trying, not under trying. We were just out there flowing, and I think that that really helped everything kinda come together. I made sure I ate good. I know that for me, like, I can't drink when I'm at a horse show because alcohol messes up my sleep, and we've talked about sleep's important for me, so I definitely prioritize that. With the thyroid deal, I definitely have to kind of watch what I eat, and so if I eat a lot of, like, bad things or fried things, it'll fatigue me a lot more, and so that was something that I made sure I paid way more attention to that year because as I gotten older and wiser, I started realizing, the food you put in your body actually makes a difference, right? And then you and I kinda had some game plans of beforehand with the physical fitness and then the recovery and, like, also just having the peace of mind of you telling me, like, "Okay, resting is a good thing." That really, really helped a lot, and so we just kinda took it day by day and meal by meal and class by class, and we were good.
So you've talked a couple times before about how you would always flop in the finals. Did you figure that out, how to not do that before you got to the world show, or is that the show that you really worked through that?
Yeah, great question because that was kind of what I was known for. And realistically, that's pretty much the first show that I was able to showcase that. But like we had talked about a little bit earlier when you asked things that had changed, that's when I started focusing a lot more on my mindset was in 2020. And a lot of that came through the podcasts that I was listening to, the audiobooks that I was listening to, just kind of the people that I was surrounding myself with of, like, high performers and how they did it, and that really, really made a difference to me, was understanding and hearing someone else's description and story of being a successful person, realizing that they aren't some mythical creature that do things that are wild and crazy. They're just normal people, and they ride the horse that they have, and they put in the time, and they know what they're capable of, and they just do it, right? And I think that being able to take the time in 2020 with COVID, with things being shut down, and while that sucked, it did free up a lot of time for me to just really dive into the wild, crazy world of mental mindset performance.
Can you remember, like, a specific quote or a specific podcast or a specific episode that you listened to that really helps you with that, or was it just overall?
Absolutely. So there's a gentleman named Tim Grover. He was Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant's personal trainer. And he wrote a book called Winning and a book called Relentless. And I listened to both of those books probably 5 times. I still will pull them out every couple months just to remind myself of, like, what it takes to be a true competitor. I've tried referring it to people, and it's not something that resonates with a lot of people, but if you think you might like it, check it out because it really was a game changer for me. But he has a quote that's along the lines of, "In order to get what you really want, you must first be who you really are." And when I read that, that was like a shot to the heart of, "Ooh, you are not living in alignment with who you really are. So how in the world are you supposed to get what you really want? And for me, what I really wanted was to be a horseman and to win that show, which would be a reflection of me becoming a horseman. And in order to do that, I needed to dive deep into just learning everything that there was about horses and horse training and horse thought and horse showing and everything. And being who I really am was I was not being that. The circumstances that I was in at that point felt like I was in a lot of a charade, and that definitely held me back more mentally, I feel like. But by reading that book, that really opened my eyes and said, you can be who you are, and it's okay. Just because you aren't maybe the stereotypical girl next door, like, it's okay to be crazy and obsessed and passionate about something that maybe other people don't understand. And I really, really took that and ran with it and learned as much as I could about horses and their brains.
Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends.
I love that. It's like a full journey that you took to get there. You have been talking about that book and Tim Grover since I've known you. And I think I've listened to a little bit of the book, but I have not listened to the whole thing, and I need to.
Yeah,
So, thank you for reminding me about that because I keep forgetting about it.
you're so welcome. I hope you like it. And it's one of those too where you kind of have to read it when you're kind of on that journey in life. Otherwise, it's kind of like, oh, this is too intense for me because it is intense, and I love that.
Let's talk about, like, what a typical training session looked like for you and Rooster. Was there anything special that you did, or, like, how did you look at your rides? Did you have, like, little goals that you were working toward? What did that look like during 2020?
Yeah, so I had gotten into watching Clinton Anderson's Down Under Horsemanship. I know people are gonna laugh at me when they hear that, but my goodness, he's got some great tips, and really, truly, like, it's the basis of understanding horses, even though sometimes it's a little vulgar. So I apologize for those of you who are gonna go and check it out now. Just beware, but it's worth it. So he talks a lot about how horses learn on pressure and release, and the release is more important than the pressure. And so I would go out on a training session with Rooster and have a goal. Let's say it's to change a lead or to go over poles, or I mean, we'll just break it down of going over poles. So I would set up a trail course. I would have high poles. I would do one obstacle at a time. As soon as he did it like correctly, I would quit. It could be the very first time, and I would just be like, okay, that's good enough. I would ask him to do my turnaround, and if he did it correctly on the very first time, okay, I don't need to do it again. And that's because he was a broker horse, but he was also a more anxious horse, and I think that really helped because it made it very clear to him as to what I wanted from him, and so he learned to understand what I was asking and how to do it more effectively and quickly by me learning when to release, because I think a lot of times as non-pros, we wanna just do things over and over and over again, and sometimes that's not always the best for our horses. And so that was a lot of what I did each day, was just have a goal and figure we're going to pressure and release, and the release is going to come from me getting off and saying, good boy, you did a great job. I pet him a lot.
I think that's an important thing to look at is to become a world champion, that doesn't mean that okay, I'm not a world champion, so maybe I shouldn't say this, but maybe you can talk about this a little bit. You always talk about putting in the reps, but I think it's more about putting in the correct number of reps instead of the most number of reps. So, like you said, making sure that you had that strong relationship built with Rooster. You knew he was a little bit more of an anxious horse. So, you could have had the mindset of, "Oh, I'm going to drill this until it's perfect because I'm chasing that world title." But instead, you had the mindset of, "Okay, I'm going to do it until it's right, and then I'm not going to practice it again for the rest of the day because I know that's going to be I know that's gonna be more helpful towards my goal than just drilling it and drilling it and drilling it."
Absolutely. And then, like you had asked about different quotes that stood out. Another thing that I had listened to at that point in time, because Andrea Fapani had started his podcast during that time as well, is he said, when you bring your horse out, it's not necessarily if your horse, if you know your horse can turn a +1, you don't go out there and try to turn a +1 every single day. Let's say your horse can turn a +1, but it comes out for whatever reason and is turning a -1. You quit when you get it to turn at a 0 because that's an improvement for the day. You don't need to get up to that +1 turn because for whatever reason, he was really far down. So it's a lot of learning, like, what is enough of an improvement to call it a win for the day? It's not necessarily getting perfection every single day because I think perfection every single day makes both you and your horse crazy. And so it's just asking for enough of an improvement that you can develop a relationship and know that, okay, when I get on, if things aren't exactly what I want, I can make it a little better. And I think that that was really important too, because then when you get to the horse show and things aren't 100% right, you know that, okay, I can make this a little bit better.
If you could go back and give yourself one piece of advice during your journey to get that world title, what would it be?
Be who you really are in order to get what you really want sooner in life. That would be my piece of advice, is to really know who you are and what makes you you and to embrace that. And that doesn't give you like a hall pass to be a turd or anything, but like know what your passions are and what lights you up as a writer and as a person, and do those things and align yourself with people who support those things and don't tell you that it's silly and don't tell you that, you can't be proud of yourself if you aren't doing the work, Like, it's really important to know what makes you tick and then pursue it.
How did you not give up on the hard days?
This is gonna sound a little bit, like, sad, but I just told myself nobody else is coming to save you. You're on your own. Like, figure it out. You've got to, because at that point, like, I had no one to help me. Like, I mean, I had my mom, my phone, but we weren't horse trainers, and, yeah, when things would get hard, it's just like, nobody's coming to save you, you've gotta figure it out, and for some reason, that just made me dig deep and say, "Okay, I can't quit because nobody will fix the mess I've made, it's all me."
Can you remember, like, a specific time or a specific ride where something was just not really going your way, and how did you handle it?
Oh, countless times, and really what would need to happen was me stop, get off, because I didn't have the answer in the moment as to how to train my way out of something or ride my way out of something. And I would literally stop, get off, go tie him up, and just go to the internet or make a phone call or, at first I would cry a little and then and then I would do those things. But I mean, I just automatically went to, you've got to find an answer because nobody's coming to save you. So figure it out because the answer is out there.
That was a really good answer. So let's say that I came to you and I said, "Lauren, I wanna become a world champion." What's the biggest piece of advice or most helpful piece of advice that you could give me?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the first thing is surround yourself with encouraging people because you are not going to be able to do this journey alone. It's going to tax you in so many different ways that if you're alone in it, it's going to be very, very difficult. So surround yourself with great people. And you have to have a student of the game mindset where you are just willing to learn and try and fail and know that you are just committed to your craft no matter how many attempts it takes you. And then also surround yourself with a lot of knowledge and horsemen because in order to be a world champion, you need to be a horseman and you need to know your horse. Spend time with your horse. And like we talked about, put in quality reps, but also just taking your horse for a walk and paying attention to what they pay attention to. That's a great way to get to know your horse. So that way, when you step in the pen, you know what might set them off and be able to counteract it and stuff. So get to know your horse, surround yourself with great people, and surround yourself with people who have knowledge to share with you and just never stop learning. That would be my advice for you.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up to date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.